Hidden truth exposed. Billionaire grandma's incredible heartwarming reveal at Waitress shocks everyone in Maplewood. The aroma of fresh pancakes and coffee filled the small diner like a warm hug. Among the bustling clatter of dishes and laughter, Sarah stood out her charisma like a beacon in the fog of everyday life. At 30, she was a single mother, juggling endless responsibilities, with a dream of a brighter future for her 8-year-old son, Tommy. While wealthier patrons sat sipping their lattes with a sense of entitlement, Sarah served them with a genuine smile, her heart full of dignity and grit. But on that cloudy afternoon, everything changed. In walked Meg, an elderly woman sporting a vintage coat, looking like she had stepped out of another era. There was something sparkly in her eyes that invited curiosity. She settled in Sarah's section, and their first words, casual enough, sparked a fire of connection. "Rainy days always make me crave pancakes," Meg chuckled, and Sarah felt a warmth flicker through her. Someone understood her little joys. As days turned into weeks, they shared more than meals, they exchanged stories, fears, and laughter. Meg's tales of her childhood in Maplewood resonated with Sarah. There was a depth to their conversations that cut through the diner's usual banter, wrapping them in an invisible bond fueled by shared resilience. But just as hope began to shimmer for Sarah, reality crashed in like a storm. An eviction notice, a slap in the face from her landlord, who saw dollar signs instead of a family. The community of Maplewood started to split. Some rallied around Sarah, their voices rising against injustice, while others turned away, content to keep their heads down and wallets closed. "Sarah, you can't let them do this," Meg urged one afternoon, her voice tremulous yet strong. "We're fighters, not quitters." With every battered letter she received, Sarah's heart ached. She feared not just for her home but for her son, for the diner that felt like family, where each flip of a pancake was laced with love and hope. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into a whirlwind of rallies and meetings. Sarah found strength in her community as they stood shoulder to shoulder, pushing against the tide of inequality. But Meg remained a mystery wrapped in her fog of nostalgia, her health faltering as her past loomed larger than ever. Then George, the landlord, upped his game. There was talk of a big reveal, a truth that could destroy everything they built together. As Sarah stared into Meg's eyes, uncertainty mingled with hope. Had she stumbled onto something that could save her, or would it be another choice made too late, dooming them both? As shadows lengthened over the diner, the air thickened with tension. The past was knocking at their door, and together, they stood at the brink of revelation, a moment that could change everything. Would Maplewood embrace the truth, or tear them apart in the name of status? Sarah sat across from Meg, her heart racing. The whirring fan overhead punctuated the silence as they scanned the diner, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on them. What was this big reveal that had George so riled up? The thought hovered like a storm cloud, a nagging dread kissing at the edges of their budding friendship. "Sarah," Meg began, her voice shaky yet determined, "there's something I've been keeping from you." She fiddled with a napkin, her fingers trembling ever so slightly. "I haven't shared my whole story yet, and it might help explain why I want to help you." "I'm listening," Sarah replied softly, her eyes searching Meg's for answers. "I grew up in Maplewood, the daughter of a businessman who built this town. After he passed, I inherited all of it, the business, the wealth, everything. But I didn't want it. I wanted to be free from those expectations. Why didn't you tell me before?" Sarah couldn't hide the flurry of emotions that crossed her face: anger, confusion, relief, all coalescing into a single thought. Could Meg's history change everything? Because being rich is complicated. I've watched people treat each other differently based on money. I've seen families torn apart. I wanted nothing to do with it, so I lived a quiet life, working to rebuild what I lost. The depth of Meg's vulnerability sent a flicker of warmth through Sarah. But I can't be evicted, Meg. I can't lose Tommy's home. I was just a waitress. I never dreamed of needing anyone's help. Meg leaned closer, her eyes wide with urgency. You don't have to be alone in this. Let me help you stop George. Something shifted in the air. Determination bloomed in Sarah's heart, pushing away the dregs of despair. What do you mean? Meg took a deep breath. I still own part of the property that your landlord is trying to sell. If we band together, we could challenge him. But what if he fights back? He will, Meg said with fierce resolve. But we have the community on our side, Sarah. They believe in you. And I believe in you too. The words infused Sarah with hope, sparking a fire inside her. The faces of the patrons flashed through her mind. Lila, who always tipped generously, Thomas, the retired firefighter who shared stories of courage over coffee. They were all in it together, weren't they? As if summoned by her thoughts, Lila stepped through the door just then, her expression one of determination. I heard what's happening. I want to help. The diner rallied around them in a wave of solidarity, voices growing louder, infusing the heavy air with strength. But with every glimmer of hope, a shadow loomed in the back of Sarah's mind. George wouldn't he simply roll over? He'd retaliate, and the fight wasn't just for her home, it was for the very soul of Maplewood. As Meg, Sarah, and Lila huddled, plotting their next move, a sudden knock echoed from the back of the diner, a sharp reminder that the brewing battle was closer than they thought. What now? Sarah whispered, her voice laced with both fear and eagerness. The door swung open, revealing George, with a smug smile plastered on his face and a briefcase in hand. I believe we need to talk. All the courage Sarah had gained washed over her like ice water. They were about to plunge into the fight of their lives, one that would determine everything they held dear. Could they stand against the storm that was coming? Would the truth empower them or tear them apart? Sarah's heart raced, panic fluttering through her chest as George strolled in like he owned the place, twilight shadows dancing on his sharp suit, the briefcase in his hand as ominous as a loaded gun. Lila and Meg exchanged nervous glances, their camaraderie instantly turning into wariness. Sarah, George's voice dripped with condescension, we can skip the pleasantries. I came here to discuss your impending eviction. It's unfortunate you're blindsided, but make no mistake, this is happening. The words hung heavy in the air, every heartbeat loud in Sarah's ears. She clenched her fists, feeling the rise of defiance swallow her fear. No, you listen. You can't just take away my home. You think you can buy people, but I've got the community behind me. We won't let you win. George chuckled, a dry sound devoid of humor. Sweetheart, a community is good for a few cheers and biscuits. But when it comes down to it, money speaks louder than any rally cry. He leaned closer, arrogance leaking from every pore. And I've got that covered. Which is why we'll stand together, Sarah, Meg interjected, her voice firm, nudging Sarah's arm with reassurance. This is about more than just you. It's about Maplewood's spirit. And that's something you can't buy. Is that so? George quirked an eyebrow, amusement flashing in his eyes. You aim for dramatic, but this is business. Nothing personal. Don't pretend you care about us, Lila shot back, her fists clenched in determination. It's about your greed and your bottom line, George. But you overestimate your hold on this town, and that's your mistake. Feisty, he replied, trailing a finger along the edge of the table in mock contemplation. You think riling up a few locals will do you any good? Newsflash, they won't risk their livelihoods for a waitress. The truth in his words stabbed deeper than Sarah could handle. She remembered the nights spent waiting tables, scraping by, where every tip was like a lifeline to cover rent. Was he right? Did these people, her neighbors, cherish her enough to stand in her corner? Meg placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, grounding her. He's wrong. The heart of Maplewood is stronger than he knows. We will rally together. George straightened, fixing his tie, his confidence unshaken. You might want to think twice. If you take this fight to the courts, I won't go easy. I always get what I want. And that includes your little diner. A silence fell over the diner, everyone holding their breath. Sarah glanced at the clock ticking above the counter, each tick a reminder that time was running out. She thought of Tommy, her late father, his laughter filling the small space that had felt like home. The tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back, determined not to crack under pressure. While you think you can play God here, you're underestimating the power of community, Sarah finally spoke, her voice steady. We're more than just names on a property deed. We're people. He smiled a smile that didn't reach his eyes. It'll be interesting to see just how far that naivete gets you, Sarah. With that, he turned on his heel, striding out as pompously as he entered, but Sarah felt something shift in her. The diner felt smaller without him, the weight of his presence lifting but still heavy in the aftermath. Are we really ready for this? Sarah asked, glancing at Meg and Lila. A concoction of fear and excitement swirled within her. We've been ready for years, Lila replied, fierceness lighting her eyes. And together, we're unstoppable, Meg added, squeezing Sarah's hand. As the three of them stood together, the passion igniting in the diner filled the air with hope. But the reality of George's threat loomed ominously in the background like dark clouds before a storm. They could unify their community and challenge him, but at what cost? Determination mingled with dread. Sarah took a breath as she readied herself for what was next. Would they truly rally to fight for their home, or would fear win out in the end? As she stared into the faces of her friends, the stakes hit her harder than ever. George wasn't just a businessman, he was a monster poised to destroy everything they built together. Could they find a way to fight back before it was too late? Sarah sat at the counter, her heart still racing from the confrontation. The buzz of the diner felt different now. It was a mixture of frightened whispers and hopeful murmurs. As the regulars trickled in for their evening meals, she noticed the concern etched on their faces. Did you hear what that guy said? Mr. Jensen, the local mechanic, grumbled as he took his seat. His coffee cup rattled on the table. Who does he think he is, coming in here and throwing around his weight? He thinks he can take it all without a fight, Lila replied, her voice low but steady. But we're not going to let him. Meg moved closer to Sarah, their shoulders brushing for comfort. We need to organize. If we're going to have a shot at this, we've got to get the word out. This isn't just your fight, it's ours too. Yeah, but what if no one cares? Sarah choked out. She hated the self-doubt creeping in, but it felt like a real possibility. What if they're all too scared to stand up? Lila shook her head fiercely. They won TB. You're our heart, Sarah. Everyone respects you. You've given people a reason to come back here, time and again. Remember when you organized that Thanksgiving dinner for the homeless? They won't forget your kindness. A warm flush spread across Sarah's chest at the memory. Little acts of love had made a ripple effect back then, but could it really translate to something as colossal as a battle against George? As she brewed fresh coffee, her mind raced through possibilities. Flyers. A town hall meeting. Maybe even a social media campaign? The thought of putting her life out there for everyone to see felt daunting. But she had to try. They had to unite. Let's gather everybody, Meg suggested, her enthusiasm bubbling over. We'll explain the situation, and I'll help set up an online petition. We can rally the support of the town. We could create a community garden too. Start something that shows our togetherness, Lila added. People care about building something together they can see and touch. It's tangible. Taking a deep breath, Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Okay, let us do it. We meet tomorrow evening, right after close. Everyone needs to know. With that, the diner began to buzz with life again. As the regulars filtered in, they were met not just with the usual warm smiles and hearty meals but with an undercurrent of urgency. "Hey, can I get a coffee to go?" asked one of the patrons. "Sure thing," Sarah said, her voice brightening despite the heaviness in her heart. "Just a heads up, we've got some big news coming tomorrow night. You might want to stick around." The reassuring chatter between tables made Sarah's pulse quicken, shifting from panic to purpose. She was going to fight for her diner, her home, and the community that felt more like family than any she'd ever had. As the evening wore on, her mind replayed the image of George and his smug smile. They could fight him, but how deep did his pockets go? Would it really make a difference, or would it crush them all in the end? The diner doors opened, and in walked the newcomer. An older woman with a warm smile that seemed to light up the space. She approached Sarah with a glimmer of familiarity in her gaze, as if she knew something vital. "Excuse me, dear," the woman began, her voice thick with emotion. "Can we talk? I think I may have something that can help you with your situation." The air shifted again, now charged with possibility. Sarah could feel it, a new hope blooming inside her. "What do you know?" She leaned in closer, her heart racing again, but this time with anticipation. The woman smiled, tucking a stray hair behind her ear. "You might be surprised at how interconnected we all are. Sometimes, the truth is hidden where you least expect it." What was she saying? What secrets did this newcomer hold? Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of a revelation that could change everything. The woman's soft eyes locked onto Sarah's. There was a comfort in her presence, yet a gravity that also hung in the air. "My name is Margaret, and I believe I know something about George that could help your fight." Sarah's brow furrowed. Her pulse quickened. "What do you mean? How do you know him?" Margaret glanced over her shoulder, as if ensuring no one was listening too closely. "George and we have a history. Let's just say that there's more to him than meets the eye. And he's not quite as untouchable as you might think." The words ignited a flicker of courage within Sarah. "What kind of history?" Margaret lowered her voice. "He was a different man back in the day. Full of kindness and dreams. But when greed and power crept in, it took over. He turned his back on his roots, on what really mattered." As Margaret spoke, Sarah felt a sense of urgency. "You must know something that can help us push back. He thinks he can silence us, but he won't. Not without a fight." A chuckle escaped Margaret's lips, light yet full of conviction. "That fire you have in you, dear, it reminds me of myself many years ago. Listen closely. There's a reason George has been so successful in keeping the town divided and fearful. He thrives on isolation. But I have a plan." Sarah leaned in, her heart pounding. "What is it?" "We must expose him. Connect with those he has wronged. There's a town council meeting this week where he plans to push through decisions that will impact your diner and the community. If we can gather enough people to speak out against him, it could be a tipping point." The thought sent chills down Sarah's spine. "But how do we even find those people who have been hurt by him?" Margaret's eyes sparkled with mischief. "There are always whispers in small towns. Stories passed from one heart to another. We can start by bringing everyone together tomorrow night. Seek out those who've been bullied, who've struggled under his oversight. I'll help you. But we need to act quickly." Panic mixed with excitement swirled within Sarah. "Tomorrow night after the diner closes, but we just thought people wouldn't care." Margaret placed her hand on Sarah's shoulder, grounding her. "You won't know until you try. You've already brought many together, one act of generosity at a time. Carry that forward. Give them a reason to believe." Sarah straightened her back, a new determination surging through her. "We can do this. We'll make noise. We'll fight back." "Absolutely." Margaret's smile radiated warmth, but her eyes held a fierceness that resonated with Sarah. And remember, sharing a truth can sometimes awaken the courage within others. Around them, the diner buzzed on, oblivious to the transformative moment brewing right at the counter. Yet Sarah could feel the tide shifting. "Let's meet tomorrow afternoon," Sarah said, a newfound confidence in her voice. "We'll brainstorm ways to reach out and gather stories. Maybe we can even create a display at the diner for all to see." Margaret nodded enthusiastically. "Find me back here before closing. Together, we'll show the courage that lives in the heart of this community." As Margaret turned to leave, a rush of hope flowed through Sarah. Could this truly be the beginning of something big? Just then, as if on cue, George entered the diner, the smiles of the patrons suddenly fading, replaced with nervous looks. He strutted in, his presence oppressing, turning heads with an air of arrogance. "Evening, folks," he called out, his voice dripping with false cheer. "Always a pleasure to see such familiar faces." Sarah's heart raced again, but this time, it was different. Anger sparked behind her fear. She straightened, locking eyes with him, not to back down, but to prepare for whatever was coming next. What had Margaret uncovered about George? Would the community rally behind her in time to face him? The answers felt like they were just out of reach, but Sarah could sense that the tides were turning. "Tomorrow's going to be a game changer," she whispered to herself, feeling the energy of change. What would she uncover about George's past, and would it be enough to inspire the town to stand together? The next day began drenched in an early afternoon sun, shimmering across the diner windows, yet Sarah felt the weight of the coming night pressing down on her. She bustled about with extra enthusiasm, wiping tables and pouring fresh coffee, but her mind was a whirlwind. The urgency to prepare for the gathering gnawed at her. Today, she and Margaret would outline their plan to reach the very souls George had trampled over. As the clock inched closer to closing time, anticipation electrified the air. Sarah peeked outside, a few familiar faces strolled by, heads bowed, eyes cautious. They were silent witnesses to George's reign of fear. She wondered how many of them were feeling what she felt, a simmering dissatisfaction masked in everyday geniality. Margaret arrived right on time, a canvas bag slung over her shoulder, her eyes gleaming with purpose. "Ready?" she asked, her voice steady and reassuring. "More than ready. I think I've already taken way too many orders," Sarah joked, trying to lighten the weight of the moment. She motioned towards the back room, where the diner's chatter faded, transforming into a safe little bubble where they could strategize. Once settled, Margaret laid out printed flyers filled with the details of the meeting. "This is our launch pad. We'll leave these around town. People need a reminder that they're not alone. That they've got a voice." A buzz of excitement struck Sarah. What if we added a personal touch? A bit of storytelling? People might be more willing to share their experiences if they see that we care. Margaret nodded. Yes. Stories bridge connections. Maybe even a wall where they can share their own, anonymously. Something tangible they can look at and feel part of, not just another meeting they're attending. Ideas flowed between them, the atmosphere thick with inspiration. They plotted who to reach out to first, those who watched as George's empire expanded, the families displaced from their homes, employees sacked with no warning. Just as they were finalizing their thoughts, the door swung open again, and in walked Jenny, the waitress who worked the morning shift. Her face was strained, heavy with burdens unshared, but her spirit flickered with hope. "I overheard your conversation through the kitchen door. Can I help?" "Of course," Sarah replied, her heart leaping at the sight of someone willing to join the cause. The more voices, the better. Joining their huddle, Jenny brought new stories of discontent from her regulars, tales of resilience overshadowed by despair. The three women sat on the edge of something monumental, a wave building just below the surface. "Let's go door to door," Margaret suggested. "Speak directly to them. Nothing beats personal outreach. We need to ignite awareness." The spark in Sarah's chest grew into flames. Tonight, we'll light that fuse. We need to make sure people feel the strength in unity. Yet, as they prepared flyers and layered their plans with possibility, a nagging thought crept into Sarah's mind. What if they faced George's wrath? She knew he wouldn't take their moves lightly. But the fear began to flicker in the shadows of her heart, overshadowed by a bubbling resolve. Later, as dusk settled and the diner closed, word began to circulate about the gathering. The phone calls started rolling in an echo of engagement, with voices excited to come together, filled with the promise of transparency and courage. They hosted the meeting beneath the dim light of the diner's neon sign, a beacon calling to the broken-hearted and restless. With each passing minute, laughter and whispers filled the space as people began to arrive, their faces a medley of anxious hope. Would they be ready to stand up against George, to expose the man he had become? As Sarah glanced around the room, her heart soared. It felt like more than just a community. These were individuals united by shared scars and the pursuit of healing. They were not just there to listen, they were ready to fight. But as she began speaking, the creaking door caught her attention. A figure loomed outside, cloaked in shadow, someone familiar and foreboding. Was it George? She couldn't help but wonder if he somehow sensed what was brewing. Could this be the moment they were all waiting for, or was disaster on the horizon? Hold on to hope, she whispered to herself, clenching the edges of the table. Tonight could change everything, but at what cost? The heavy silence weighed in, and with the door still ajar, an uncertain future stared back at them like a lurking predator. The room buzzed with energy, but Sarah's heart thudded furiously in her chest. Every face turned towards the door, uncertainty hanging in the air like fog. The figure outside shifted, a silhouette that brought tension to the room. George. That thought sent a shiver down her spine. She couldn't let fear overwhelm them now. Margaret noticed Sarah's distraction. Are you okay? She whispered, concern etched on her face. Just. I think someone's here, Sarah replied, her eyes locked onto the shadow. I can't shake this feeling. The murmurs quieted as Jenny leaned closer to Sarah. Should we check? Before anyone could answer, the door swung open completely, revealing an unexpected sight. It wasn't George. In fact, it was Mrs. Eleanor Greystone, the lavishly dressed but often hidden billionaire known for her charitable heart. Gasps filled the room as she stepped inside, her presence a puzzling contrast to the shabby diner. Hello, my dear friends, Eleanor said, her voice smooth as silk. I heard you were gathering tonight. Mrs. Greystone. Sarah exclaimed, caught off guard but feeling a unique sense of warmth radiating from the woman. What brings you here? Eleanor offered a small smile, her eyes twinkling. It's time I stepped out from the shadows. I've been watching, listening, and it appears my time is best spent right here, with all of you. The crowd erupted with questions, hope blooming in their hearts. Eleanor raised her hand, urging silence. I know your struggles. I've witnessed George's influence, and I won't stand by any longer. Her voice resonated with conviction, filling the diner with a newfound energy that felt electric. Why now, Eleanor? Margaret asked, urgency in her tone. Why come to us? The billionaire hesitated, drawing a breath. Because like many of you, I was once small. I grew tired of being depicted as a heartless figure, too detached to care. When I took a step back, I realized my wealth could mean something more. I want to help you reclaim your lives and your dignity. A murmur swept through the diner. Hope kindled with every word. Sarah felt a warmth rise within her, pushing away the cold grip of fear. Eleanor walked toward the wall they've prepared for personal stories, leaning slightly toward a pushpin on the board. With your stories, we can initiate real change, she continued, a fervent flame in her eyes. I will use my resources to ensure your voices echo far beyond this diner. But you must be brave. Your honesty will pave the way. Sarah jumped in. We were just discussing how to unite people, to stir the spirit of fighting back. We all have our tales of anguish and resilience. Your presence can truly amplify our message. Then let me be part of this movement, Eleanor declared, her voice powerful and reassuring. Together, we'll expose George's tyranny and stir the consciousness of those still trapped in fear. I can mobilize, advertise, connect, rally. But I need you, all of you, to share. At that moment, the cracked heart of the diner pulsed with life, and Sarah felt the eye of a storm brewing. She glanced around, and her friends looked as though the weight of the world had begun to lift. Their lives, their stories each held the power to shake the foundations of George's empire, but a lingering doubt gnawed at Sarah, a fear of how George would react once he discovered their collective strength. Would he unleash his fury? Or would he finally meet his match? The tension thickened again, intertwining with excitement. As Eleanor's words hung in the air, Sarah took a deep breath, ready to rise and pour out her truth. They had the chance to ignite a fire, but would they be brave enough to fan the flames? All right, let us do this. Sarah's voice rang out, rallying the crowd as Eleanor stepped back with a newfound trust in them all. We have each other now, and together, it's time we faced whatever comes next. Little did they know, unbeknownst to them, George was already preparing to strike back in ways they couldn't foresee. As shadows grew long outside the diner, the first steps toward change had been taken, but a tempest lay at the edge of their horizon, waiting to challenge them all. What would they do when darkness descended? Would they tighten their unity or splinter when push came to shove? The diner was alive now, a blend of nervous laughter and urgent whispers. Sarah felt the hum of excitement beneath her skin as she faced Eleanor. It was as if a dam had burst, a surge of energy flowing through the room. She scanned the faces of her friends, each illuminated by hope but shadowed by the uncertainty of what was to come. Eleanor stood at the front, her stance sure and commanding. "Who's ready to share?" she asked, her eyes inviting. The silence that followed was palpable. Each person seemed to wrestle with their own fear of exposure, the raw honesty of their stories slicing through the air. Sarah felt her heart race. The comfort of anonymity was slipping away, and the fear of judgment tangled with the desire for liberation. "I'll go," Jenny finally spoke up, her voice trembling. All eyes turned toward her, and she took a breath, clenched her fists, and plunged in. "I've been working at this diner for years, juggling bills that just pile higher and higher. George, he doesn't care about us. He's taken so much already." Her voice cracked, and in that moment, her vulnerability ignited something in the others. One by one, stories flowed. Margaret detailed her battles with illness, the way George's disregard for community resources left her feeling helpless. Ed recounted how he had lost his house, a casualty of George's greed. Each story was a brick laid down in the foundation of their collective defiance. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes as she listened. They were all fighting battles invisible to the world, and now, dressed in their truth, they were a fierce force. They were bound together not just by hardship, but by the shared resolve to fight back. When her turn came, Sarah stood up, heart pounding. "I've spent my life feeling small, too," she began, her voice gathering strength. "George's reach feels endless, but I see hope in all of you. I see people who refuse to be silenced. Together, we can show the world what we're made of." A wave of cheers erupted, hands raised high as the diner shook with newfound energy. Eleanor watched, her face beaming with pride, knowing that their raw truth was a weapon against the tyranny they faced. But just as the moment swelled, the sharp clang of the diner's bell cut through the atmosphere, the door flung open to reveal a chilling figure. George, eyes dark and searching, stepped inside. The warmth of hope that filled the room evaporated as icy fear replaced it. "What's going on here?" His voice dripped with menace, each word sharp as glass. Pandemonium gripped the diner. The courage they had felt moments ago was now tangled in a knot of anxiety. Sarah's stomach dropped. She had underestimated him. "Everyone, stay calm," Eleanor called, stepping forward in a brave attempt to shield the group. "We are simply having a conversation about the community." George smirked, the smile not reaching his eyes. "Community?" I don't think you're in a position to lecture anyone. Their unity had only just begun, but now they stood on the precipice of danger. Would they show fear, or would they stand together against the storm? In that moment, Sarah understood. This was at the decisive hour they had been waiting for. As George's presence loomed, the air thick with tension, Sarah's heart raced with unyielding resolve. They had to protect what they had started. But with George lurking, would they be strong enough to face him? The choices they made now would set the course for everything that lay ahead. Would they buckle under pressure or forge something unbreakable? With the diner silent, all eyes shifted between Sarah, Eleanor, and George as the fight for their future began. Eleanor stepped forward, her voice steady despite the electricity in the air. "We have every right to talk about our lives," she declared, her eyes boring into George's. The others stirred behind her, heads high and fists clenched, their fear transforming into a unified front. Sarah felt a spark igniting again. "Your lives?" George rolled his eyes, dismissive. "You're nothing without my generosity. Just remember who keeps this diner running." Gasps erupted from the group. Margaret's expression shifted from fear to indignation. "Generosity? You mean exploitation? You think we're your puppets, but we're people, not cards in your game." George scoffed, but Sarah sensed the cracks forming in his bravado. The air thickened with tension, words hanging like daggers in the silence. She glanced at her friends, their resolve fortified her. "Together, we've built something here," Sarah said, her voice trembling but firm. "You can bully us, but you can't erase our community." She felt the weight of her words settling over the diner. Each pair of eyes met hers with a flicker of hope. Was it enough to spark the courage they needed? "Is that right?" George challenged, stepping closer. He towered over them, his smile twisted. "I think you're all just a bunch of losers who can't fend for themselves. Don't you dare talk to us that way." Jenny shouted, surprising even herself. A ripple of confidence surged through the crowd. "We're stronger than you think," Ed added, voice raised. "This diner isn't just a business. It's our home. You've taken so much from us, but we're done being silent." A murmur of agreement filled the space, voices overlapping, umbrellas of bravery forming overhead. Sarah felt her heart swell. Each voice built something bigger than the individual, a chorus echoing against George's onslaught. "Enough," he barked, his face reddening. "You'll regret this. You're all risking your livelihoods. But at least we're risking them for something real." Eleanor shot back defiantly. "It's time for us to stand our ground, and the world needs to hear our stories." In that moment, Sarah saw the shift in the room. There was power growing, no longer individual whispers anxiously shying away from power, but a collective shout ready to echo through the streets. "While you can silence us when we're apart," Sarah declared, stepping even closer, "together we're a force you can't control. You may think money gives you power, but our voices, united, can't be bought." George's expression faltered, shadows dancing across his face. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in his piercing gaze. "You think you can start a revolution?" he asked, voice harder than steel. "Maybe not a revolution, but we're starting a movement," Sarah countered, heart pounding with adrenaline. Meanwhile, the diner's door swung open again. This time, it wasn't just a chilly breeze but the aroma of possibility. Just behind George, local news cameras began to flood in, drawn by the clamor spilling out onto the street. Sarah's breath hitched. They had come for a story, but what they might witness was far more profound. "See?" George snarled. "Look what you've done. You think they'll rally around you? You're dreaming." But now Sarah understood. This was not just about them anymore, it was their chance to share their truth with the world. If they stood firm, the world might finally see the reality behind their struggles. As cameras zoomed in, they captured the faces of people transformed, reminded that they were unbreakable when they stood together. The atmosphere crackled with tension and exhilaration, like a storm ready to burst. Would George finally back down, or would he fight to maintain his grip? The choice hung in the balance, and in that moment, Sarah realized, this was just the beginning. Would they seize the moment, or would fear once again hold them captive? They were on the cusp of change, but had they pushed too far too fast? The tension in the diner crackled like an electric storm, faces illuminated by the harsh glow of overhead lights and the flickering glow of hope in everyone's eyes. Sarah stood at the center of it all, heart racing, her voice vibrant against the backdrop of uncertainty. The news cameras clicked and flashed, capturing every moment. Would today be the moment they would no longer be silenced? George sneered, clearly rattled by the attention shifting towards the community. Think you can sway these reporters to your side? Money's still my game, and I play to win, he spat, adjusting his tie, trying to regain his composure. But Sarah sensed the tide turning, a wave of courage building and crashing up against the wall of his smug confidence. You underestimate all of us, she said, stepping forward, a fire blazing behind her resolve. We're done being your pawns. We're human beings. Our stories matter. They deserve to be told, and together, we can rise against your greed. Those words echoed through the diner, found a rhythm deep inside each heart present. Murmurs began to weave through the crowd, building like drumbeats. The weight of shared stories hung palpably in the air, each one a testament of pain and strength that couldn't be ignored. Eleanor nodded, her own eyes glistening with conviction. Today, every hurt and every injustice hops aboard the same train of gratitude and resilience. We are not just individuals, we're a collective spirit modeled by love and shared struggles. Can't buy that, George. She crossed her arms, leaning into the wave of solidarity blooming like wildflowers in spring. George's bravado waned, frustration flicking across his features. You think this is a game? I can make or break your dreams with a phone call. You'll wish you'd kept quiet, mark my words. But amidst his bluster, a realization crept in. The community was rallying around Sarah and her idea of resistance, not just in the diner but possibly throughout Maplewood. The air grew thick with determination, and one by one, furniture shifted as individuals started standing tall, shoulders squared. I've worked for you, George. Jenny yelled, lighting her own internal spark as she took a step forward. You've pushed people like me out. But I'm not going to stand by while you crush this diner and community. I fought for my family's survival, and I believe we deserve to survive and thrive together. Applause erupted around her like thunder, and George's smirk faltered. The cameras turned toward the diner's vibrant energy, capturing the faces of people awakening from their slumber of fear. This isn't just about a diner, this is about homes, lives, and a community that deserves better. Sarah shouted, her heart full and eyes gleaming. With every exhale, she felt stronger. As voices crescendoed, it was more than just words, it was a movement pulsing with vigor. Each new speaker passed another shard of glass toward freedom, revealing truths long hidden beneath shadows. The momentum built, energy swirling like a tornado of raw emotion. At that moment, George burst through the door with urgency, the tinge of panic laced his voice. You'll regret this. I'll make sure of it. He turned to the camera crew, pointing angrily. This isn't news. This is propaganda. You're being played by a pathetic group of nobodies. A collective surge rose within the diner, united against George's words. Lila challenged him next, we are not nobody. We are Maplewood. We have history, and we're shaping our future right now. Every voice wove together, as snippets of their collective narrative rose like a heartbeat, swelling into a symphony of resilience. They were moving from words to action and hope glowed brighter. This time, when Sarah spoke, she wasn't afraid, her heart sang with fierce knowing. You think you can intimidate us? We're fighting for every family in Maplewood, for every dream you've tried to destroy. We're not backing down. George wavered, and for those precious moments, they all saw it, fear. His composure slipped clenched fists, a calm facade cracking before the force of unyielding truth. Enough! He screamed, his voice raw and desperate. You don't realize how badly I can hurt you. I hold the secrets, I can ruin lives. Do it! Margaret shouted, her voice echoing louder than his. It only proves you're scared. You fear what we stand for, our unity, our fortitude. You've stopped us once, but this time, you know what we're capable of. The room erupted, but Sarah's voice cut through the noise like a knife, raw emotion gripping her. You don't control us any longer, George. We're taking back our narrative, our town, and no threats can stop us. He faltered, jaw tightening, as the realization dawned on him, they would not back down. Sarah felt the energy simmering around her, a shared heartbeat that pulsed with hope. Outside, the world began to witness the authenticity of every struggle. The community of Maplewood was awakening like a beast stirred from centuries of slumber. With their collective stories, they planted seeds, and the roots spread, seeking the light. Your time is up, George. Sarah shouted, her voice unwavering. You may think you can bully us with your money, but we are fighting for something bigger than you can ever buy. This is our home. In that moment, the light of hope flooded the diner, and Sarah felt it shift inside her. Freedom surged, not just hers, but for every soul connected by shared battles. They were woven into a family united, unshakable, unstoppable. As George turned to leave amidst protests from the crowd, they knew this fight was not over. It was a beginning, and this time, they would rise, side by side, ready to fend against whatever darkness lingered in the shadows. From that day on, every pancake flipped in the diner would hold the whispers of truth, every cup of coffee brewed whispers of resilience, a festival of life, love, and support blooming within Maplewood's roots. They became a family that refused to break apart, a community proud of its strength. And as hope painted vibrant colors across their lives, a spirit of transformation embraced them all. Would it stand the test of time against the coming tempests? Only if they stood united. As Sarah stood at the diner counter and watched the faces of her friends, she knew the heart of Maplewood was beating stronger than ever. And together, they would make their mark no matter how long it took. Before the night ended, Sarah turned to her community gathered in unity. This is the moment. Let us fight for Maplewood, for our dreams, for every single person who has been silenced. Together, we're unstoppable. The cheers that erupted filled the diner, but beyond the walls, faith wove itself into the very fabric of the town, rippling with the unrelenting breeze of change. They were ready. The fight had only begun. It's time to rise together, Maplewood. The transformation awaits. Now you need to subscribe immediately to my channel for more exclusive stories that inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. It makes a real difference. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this transformative ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this, because true fans know how important it is to encourage and nourish our community. Join us.